The moment she signed the papers, she thought she'd be okay. The house was sold, the accounts were divided, and she was told she'd get support. But a few months later, the checks were smaller than expected. Then they stopped altogether. When she tried to fight it, the judge reminded her, everything had already been decided. That's when it hit her. She didn't just lose a marriage. She lost her financial future. Most women don't go into divorce expecting a war. They assume things will be fair, that the law will protect them, and that support is something automatic, especially if they gave up years of income, career growth, or stability to build a family. But what they don't realize is that the system doesn't reward assumption. It rewards preparation. And by the time many women understand what they should have asked for, it's already too late. That's what this video is about. The quiet myths. The overlooked truths. The well-meaning advice that sounds comforting, but ends up costing everything. We're going to walk through 7 of the most common misconceptions about spousal support that women regret believing, but not until after the divorce is final, the judge has ruled, and there's no second chance. If you're approaching a separation, or know someone who is, stay with me. Because this isn't about bitterness or blame, it's about clarity. And knowing the truth now can save you from the kind of regret that doesn't show up right away, but always comes. Let's get started. One of the most common and most damaging beliefs is that simply being married guarantees spousal support. It sounds logical. I was married, I supported the household, I should get something in return. But the courts don't work off logic. They work off criteria. And just having a marriage certificate doesn't mean a judge will grant support. What matters is how long you were married, how financially dependent you were, and what your earning potential looks like moving forward. If you were married for just a few years, or if the court sees you as capable of supporting yourself, you might walk away with nothing. That's not a rare outcome. It happens every day to women who assumed the system would automatically step in to help. And here's the part that stings the most. Some women give up assets, like property, savings, or shares in a business, because they think, it's okay, I'll get monthly support. Then the judge says no. Or the amount is so small it barely covers groceries. And by then, the big decisions have already been signed. This belief, that marriage alone entitles you to payments, is what keeps so many women from asking the right questions early. They think support is a safety net, but in reality, it's more like a case-by-case exception. You have to prove your need. You have to show why it's justified. And if you don't bring that proof forward during negotiations, you won't get a second shot later. Because in the courtroom, assumptions don't win. Documents do. A lot of women walk into divorce thinking, well, at least I'll get support for life. It's a comforting idea, especially after years of putting a career on hold, raising kids, or managing the home. But the reality? Lifetime spousal support is rare. Very rare. Unless you were married for decades and there's a major income gap, courts are far more likely to assign temporary support, not permanent. Judges today expect both parties to become self-sufficient. That means support is often structured to taper off, or end completely, within a few years. Sometimes it's tied to a timeline. Other times, it's tied to an event. You getting a job, finishing school, or even moving in with someone new. And if your ex retires or claims a significant drop in income, they can go back to court and ask for it to be reduced, or eliminated entirely. The harsh truth? Some women who expected for-life support were cut off in under 3 years. What's worse is that this belief can lead to long-term financial planning based on money that won't be there. You might pass up job opportunities or downsize too slowly because you assume support will carry you. But when it stops, there's no do-over. No cushion. Just a fast, painful realization that what you thought was guaranteed was actually temporary and fragile. So if you're counting on support to be there forever, think again. The law has changed. And depending on your judge, your state, or your ex's circumstances, that check may stop long before you're ready. Here's a belief that quietly sets women up for disappointment. Thinking the court will automatically be fair. It's easy to assume that if you just show up and tell the truth, the judge will see what's right and do the decent thing. But the courtroom doesn't operate on feelings. It runs on facts, paperwork, and preparation. And that's where things start to fall apart for those who walk in unprepared. Judges deal with hundreds of cases. They don't know your full story unless you spell it out. And they definitely don't base rulings on who sacrificed more emotionally. If you don't provide detailed financial records, documentation of your lifestyle during the marriage, or proof of your financial needs going forward, the court has nothing to work with. And when that happens, decisions get made quickly, and not always in your favor. Plenty of women assume the court will get it. That their years of unpaid work, childcare, or support behind the scenes will speak for themselves. But the truth is, if it's not on paper, it doesn't count. The judge can't fight for you. That's your job, or your lawyer's. And when you leave the outcome in the hands of the system without backing it up with clear evidence, you risk walking away with less than you need, and far less than you deserve. Fair doesn't mean equal. Fair doesn't mean obvious. And if you're not actively shaping how your story is told, someone else will do it for you. And their version won't be generous. A lot of women breathe a sigh of relief when spousal support is finally ordered. They think, okay, that part's settled. But what they don't realize is that in many cases, support orders can be changed, and not always for the better. One of the most painful misconceptions is believing that once it's set in stone. It's not. In reality, many spousal support agreements are modifiable. That means your ex can come back later, months or even years down the line, and ask the court to reduce what he's paying. And depending on how the agreement was written, he might get it. A job change, a claimed drop in income, or even early retirement can all be used as reasons to pay less. And courts often approve these changes if the financial story sounds convincing enough. There are women who thought they'd receive a certain amount for years, only to have that number slashed in half overnight. One woman shared how her ex claimed emotional burnout and left his high-paying job early. The court sided with him. Her support was cut, and her budget crumbled. By the time she realized the agreement wasn't as secure as she thought, she was already drowning in bills. That's why it's critical to understand whether your support is modifiable or non-modifiable from the start. And if it's open to change, you need to plan for that now, not later, when the money suddenly stops. Because in the end, what's promised in the courtroom isn't always what's delivered in real life. And if you're not ready for that possibility, it can hit like a financial ambush. One of the most silent mistakes women make during divorce is staying quiet because they don't want to seem greedy. They worry about how they'll be perceived, by their ex, by the judge, even by their own families. So instead of asking for what they truly need, they downplay it. They settle. And later, they're the ones picking up the pieces while everyone else has moved on. This belief that speaking up about money makes you selfish runs deep. Especially for women who've been raised to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, or to take care of others first. But the courtroom isn't a place for politeness. It's a place for facts. For survival. And if you walk into it trying to be nice instead of being clear, you're not going to win points, you're going to lose stability. Many women later admit they didn't push for enough support because they didn't want to make waves or drag things out. But here's the truth. It's not about taking more than you deserve. It's about making sure you can stand on your own 2 feet after the dust settles. Rent, food, insurance, emergencies, those aren't luxuries. They're life. And if you don't fight for enough now, no one's going to come back and offer it later. There's nothing greedy about protecting your future. There's nothing selfish about saying, I need this to survive. What is selfish? Expecting you to walk away with nothing after giving everything. So if that voice in your head is telling you to just stay quiet, to take less, to not cause trouble, ask yourself this. Is it really kindness? Or is it fear dressed up as politeness? It starts with good intentions. You sit down with your ex, and for the first time in weeks, things feel calm. You agree on who keeps what, how much support will be paid, and when. It all sounds fair. And because you want to avoid drama, or expensive lawyers, you make the mistake that far too many women make. You trust that a verbal agreement is enough. You think, we don't need to get lawyers involved. We've worked it out. But what you don't realize is that without a formal, written, and enforceable court order, your agreement means nothing. Verbal promises fade fast when money gets involved. Circumstances change. People change. And what someone said over coffee 6 weeks ago holds zero weight in court. If your ex decides to back out, delay payments or change the terms, you'll have no legal ground to stand on, because there's no paper trail, no judge's signature, no protection. Just your word against his. This mistake doesn't just happen in amicable divorces. It happens when people are scared of legal fees, when they're emotionally exhausted, or when they've been manipulated into believing a lawyer would just make things worse. And later, they're the ones chasing missed payments, hiring an attorney when things fall apart, and spending more time and money trying to fix what could have been locked in from the start. No matter how much you want to keep things peaceful, never agree to financial terms, especially spousal support, without getting it in writing. A legal document isn't about mistrust. It's about protection. It's about making sure your future doesn't rely on someone else's memory or mood. Because the person who promises you security today might not feel the same tomorrow. And when that day comes, the only thing that matters is what's on the record. This last one might be the hardest to admit, because on the surface, it sounds strong, empowered, hopeful. It's the belief that says, I'll be fine on my own. And maybe you will be. Maybe you'll rebuild, find your footing, and come out stronger. But too many women say those words while wildly underestimating just how much everything is about to cost. Financially, mentally, and emotionally. In the beginning it feels doable. You're free, maybe even relieved. But then the bills start stacking up. Rent is higher than you expected. Health insurance that used to be covered is now hundreds of dollars a month. Legal fees, moving expenses, food, therapy, gas, it all adds up fast. And suddenly, what felt like independence starts to feel like quicksand. This isn't about being weak. It's about being realistic. The cost of starting over, especially later in life, hits hard. And if you're walking into it without a solid financial cushion or guaranteed support, things can spiral quickly. There are women who drain their savings within months, thinking spousal support would be there, or that they didn't need it at all. By the time they realize the numbers don't work, the door to renegotiate is already shut. Saying, I'll be fine is brave. But being fine doesn't mean going without. It means planning ahead, securing what you're owed, and giving yourself the resources to actually live. Not just survive. Strength isn't about refusing help. It's about knowing when to ask for it, and making sure you don't regret it later. Because no one ever looks back and says, I wish I'd asked for less support. But far too many say, I thought I could handle it, and I was wrong. Looking back, most women don't regret the divorce itself. They regret what they didn't know, what they assumed, trusted, or stayed silent about until it was too late to change anything. These 7 misconceptions about spousal support don't just cost money. They cost time, security, peace of mind, and in some cases the ability to rebuild. And the hardest part? You often don't realize the mistake until months, or years, after the papers are signed. But now you know better. Now, you can ask the right questions before it's too late. You can speak up without guilt, document everything without apology, and protect your future instead of just hoping it works out. Because the truth is, no one is going to step in and fix it later. The negotiation phase is your moment. And once it's over, it's over. So if even one of these myths sounded familiar, don't brush it off. Take action now. Talk to a professional. Revisit your paperwork. Rethink what you've been told. You don't get to rewind this process, but you can still write the next chapter with clarity instead of regret. And if this video helped you spot something you didn't know, or reminded you of something important, drop a comment below and let us know which one hit hardest. We read every message, and your story might be the reason someone else avoids a painful mistake. If you haven't already, subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss future videos like this. Your support helps us continue creating honest, helpful content to inform and empower women going through some of life's hardest transitions. Thanks for watching, and whatever comes next, make sure you face it informed, not unprepared.